the first person to ask me what my EBITDA was, I didn't know what that was. I thought they were hitting on me.
You started your career as a Broadway actress. Then you set up a company. What happened?
I really understood the customer, having been the customer. My definition of impact, investment in a company that will make me money. It's an investment. It is not philanthropy, but in an area that makes the world better. What I really bring to the table if I choose to invest in a company is all of my relationships.
What are the most urgent social issues which you are trying to solve?
I want to raise money for breast cancer. I thought I could combine my theatrical personality, my deep network of experts, and the fact that I am well endowed, start a podcast, really in-depth topics, nothing fluff, nothing sexual, nothing silly, but I do it in a bra every time.
Hello and welcome. It's Capital Horizons. I'm Igor Yelnik. My guest today is Lisa Morris, a Broadway actress turned entrepreneur, turned investor, turned philanthropist. Hello, Lisa. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So you started your career as a Broadway actress, and then somehow you moved on to set up a company. What happened?
Well, yeah, so I started out on Broadway and I was performing for many years. And while I was touring with Broadway productions, I thought our travel was handled badly. So I started what I thought at the time would be a side hustle, booking travel for other Broadway performers. I realized really quickly I'd actually tapped into a niche market. So I quit acting and I focused on building the travel company. So it was an entertainment travel company called Road Concierge. I was a bit of an accidental entrepreneur, and the rest is history. I ended up building a very successful company that exited within 5 years.
So what did you do differently that made your company so successful and which made it resonate with touring performers?
Well, I think the primary thing that I did differently was I really understood the customer, having been the customer. So instead of approaching travel like a travel agent, thinking from the side of travel, I approached it from the client side of it, the customer experience. And I just built a better mousetrap. Anyone can book travel. You know, you're not making up, this isn't rocket science. But I was focusing on the things that mattered to my segment. Things like keeping the bar open late, ways to do your laundry. A business traveler is very different from a performer. So what's important for a business traveler is almost the opposite of what a performer needs, because we work at night and sleep during the day. We're on the road 24 hours, right? We're always on the road. So doing things like laundry or having a microwave or a fridge are really important versus a business traveler that might want more of a valet service on their laundry or a complimentary breakfast. Performers don't need breakfast. We're not awake. So I approached everything from the side of the customer. And people really liked the fact that I understood their pain points, and the rest was history.
Yeah, but this is really a niche market. And then you managed to sell this company to a large travel group. How did this happen? And what really enabled this transition?
Well, it was really funny. I didn't go to Wharton. I didn't have an MBA. I had no plan for starting a business. I just dove in and did it. And I started taking market share away from the big boys. So all of a sudden, they start contacting me, all of them trying to buy me out or get me to join them. And I didn't know anything about M&A. And so this is a bit of a funny story, but the first person to ask me what my EBITDA was, I didn't know what that was. I thought they were hitting on me. I was like, my what? Because what he said was, what does your EBITDA look like? And I was like, what? Then, of course, I realized it was a perfectly legitimate question, and it was a big laugh. We had a great laugh over it. I did not sell my company to him, but I ended up getting all sorts of different offers, and I realized that everybody basically was wondering where I came from, how this girl just sort of popped up out of nowhere, didn't come from one of their competitors, wasn't in the space, and was taking clients away from them that they'd had for 20 years. So it was a crash course for me on the M&A world because they all offered a different structure. It's kind of fascinating the way everybody decides to frame their offer. And I did not sell to the highest bidder. I sold to the company that I thought was the best option for me because I was not selling to get out. I was selling to grow. The reason I wanted to sell the company was that I was growing faster than I could manage it. And I was doing every job. I was exhausted. I was so close to burnout. And I knew I had to sell when I landed a big client and I started crying because I realized I then had to service the client. And so I really wanted a big company behind me that would take away all the headaches of the HR. I didn't want to be working all day, getting the business, executing the business, and then worrying about 401ks and payroll. So by having a big business behind me, a big company, it allowed me to grow a lot faster, giving me all of the operational support. And I continued to lead the company, but in a way that was better for my skill set, which was business development and sales and customer service versus keeping QuickBooks and back office support. I needed the help there.
Okay, so you're still doing the same thing, but now you have this massive support, and you're enjoying it much more, right?
Yeah, well, actually, it's changed a few times. So I had done a 3-year earnout. I actually left, and they realized they didn't actually know how to run my business, and so they asked me to come back to run my company as a division of the company because they didn't know how to handle the segment. They were a very large company. They were really corporate travel, and so I came back. And then that company that bought me rolled up into an even larger company. So I've been moved around a few times, but my team has stayed the same. But after I exited, I started investing because I did take all the money off the table. And so I didn't have to work for the company. I still don't have to work for the company. I do it because I had a loyal team, a loyal staff, and loyal customers, and I wanted to make sure they remained in good hands. But I really became more of the face of the company, and I moved further and further into investing and into the world that I'm currently primarily in.
Which is the world of investments, if I understand you
Right.
correctly. Okay,
Yeah.
so speaking of your investments, I know that you describe yourself as an impact investor. What is impact?
Right. So look, everybody can define impact differently. It is a broad term. For me, my definition of impact is an investment in a company that will make me money. It's an investment. It is not philanthropy, but in an area that makes the world better. People, purpose, planet is how a lot of people put it. For me, I look at education. I look at inclusivity. I look at climate. I look at healthcare. These are all impact investments. And theater. I actually invest in theater. And a lot of people would say that that's not impact. It's absolutely impact. I'll give an example. I produced a show, and we would get letters to the stage door from kids saying that they were planning on killing themselves. And because of our show, they weren't going to because they felt seen, they felt heard. Now, that is
That's an
impact. How do you
impact.
measure? Yeah, it's not like measuring, carbon emissions. But if you think about it, storytelling is one of the most impactful things anyone can invest in because storytelling allows you to change hearts, change minds, deepen understanding. And so I do love that area. So I do invest in theater. I invest in, like I said, education, health, any area that I believe moves the world forward in a really positive way. I even invested in a longevity company for dogs because I'm a big animal person. And so to me, if you can be part of extending a dog's life, that's impactful.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't move widgets or
Did your performing career have any impact on how you invest, apart from the theater, of course?
yeah, it absolutely did because I come from more of a creative mind. So for me, when I invest, it's really about trusting the founder, trusting the team, getting a real sense of character. And that's not something you can get from a spreadsheet. And that's not something you can get from an AI screener. I mean, nowadays everybody's selling me on, oh, use this AI to decide your investments. Just dump the deck in there and it's gonna tell you what you should invest in and the algorithm. And look, I'm not saying that's a bad way to invest. It's not the way I invest because I invest in people. I am very much the jockey, not the horse. And I don't believe you can get to know a jockey through an algorithm. Now, if I was an investor that was doing a much later stage company, private equity, and there's a lot of track record, a lot of data points, a lot of metrics, then it makes sense. I get that. But because I'm investing in early stage companies, most of the data is made up data anyway. Most of it's projections. So for me, it's very much about instinct and feeling, is this something I think the world needs? Is this the person to do it? Do I believe it can make money? That's what I look at.
Okay, but I presume you should receive many, many requests from founders, people who want to raise money, and I don't even want to guess the number of emails which you receive a day with requests for money, and I presume that for you, a quick no is the most valuable thing. So how do you distinguish between proposals where you should say no immediately and those where you should actually take a look and maybe spend some time?
Well, a big part of the way I can do that is if it fits, again, the impact lens. So as a female investor, I get an infuriating amount of people sending me, I thought you would like this deal, when it's some beauty product, shoe, handbag, anything in like beauty and fashion. People always think a woman is going to be interested in. I'm not at all. So if someone sends me their skincare company, it's not that it's a good or bad company. It might be the biggest successful company of all time. It's a quick no for me. Other times, it could be a great, just a solid, stock that's going to do well, or hey, we're doing this algorithmic trading platform. They're all good companies. It's not good or bad. It's not for me. So I'm immediately going to say no. I don't have any interest, for example, in gaming. It's a big industry. You can make a ton of money. Gaming could be an absolutely wonderful investment for someone else. I don't play video games. I don't like video games. I have no interest in video games. I can't add anything. So one of the things that I look for is, can I add strategic value? If I know that I can't add any strategic value, I'm typically going to say no, because my check sizes are not big enough to move the needle on their own as a passive investment. What I really bring to the table if I choose to invest in a company is all of my relationships, my network, my ability to sell, my ability to help the company grow. And if I don't think I have anything to offer them, I'm going to say no, even if it's an absolutely fantastic investment. It's a great investment for someone else. Now, what I will do a lot of the time is pass that investment along to other people in my network. I am very well connected to a ton of investors, lots of family offices. And so I will say, listen, this is not for me. I don't invest in, say, mining. I don't invest in mining. But if I know 3 family offices that are into mining and somebody comes to me with what appears to be a very good opportunity in mining, I'm happy to, forward that deck along. Or if somebody comes to me and says, we've got this great real estate deal. I don't invest in real estate, but if it's a good deal, I'm happy to connect them with a lot of my friends who focus on real estate. So I think I'm a bit of a connector by nature, and I'm always happy to help if I can.
Okay, so now let's imagine you have a proposal in which you are interested, which means that you are actually going to take a look. What are you looking at? It has just passed the first filter. What happens
Right.
next?
So if it's past the first filter where I see that it can be impactful and I believe I can help them and I think it's interesting, the next step for me is always meeting the founder, talking to the founder, because I need to understand their character. Is this somebody I want to work with? Is this somebody I believe can do what they say? So I'll give a really good example. I took a meeting with a founder really as a favor. I wasn't particularly interested in her company. It's a future of work, ed tech. It wasn't that it wasn't interesting, but it wasn't like it didn't jump off the page for me. But another founder of mine recommended it and said, please just speak to her. I really think, this company is worth looking at. So I took the meeting and it was fine. I was, just kind of going through the motion. But one of the questions I always ask, is what do you see as the biggest challenge to your success in this company? And I can't tell you how many times people basically just say access to capital. I think that's a really terrible answer because I do not believe that money is the only thing stopping you from successfully building a company. So that to me shows a real lack of vision. And it also makes me think, okay, so I'm going to give you money and you're just going to think that everything's going to be okay. I want a realistic answer. And this woman said, the physical and mental health of my team, because if they're not strong, we're not going to make it. And I just sat up and said, tell me more about your business. That was the answer I needed to hear, because that showed me that she's built a company before. Because yeah, if you don't have a good team and everybody is not on board and working towards a common goal, you're just going to take investors' money, throw it at a bunch of things, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. That's how I see it. I'm not saying I'm the only person that has an opinion, but I want to have that. I want a founder that's going to tell me the truth. I want a founder that's going to say, well, here's a possible problem. It could be supply chain. It could be geopolitical. It could be any number of things. But any founder that doesn't have a really realistic sense of where their roadblocks are going to be and where their challenges are, I don't think is a founder that's ready for my money.
Okay. Speaking of difficulties which founders face, what do you think they are?
A lack of resources is an obvious problem for founders. I mean, that's a legitimate issue. If you have to spend so much of your time trying to raise capital that you're not spending building the business, that is problematic for anyone. But I think it's a lot of things. I think some of it comes down to grit and tenacity. I look for fire in a founder, because if you're starting a company, it's like raising a toddler. It's a 24/7. You don't get to really relax ever vibe. So if you're just not somebody it's not your main focus. If I hear that it's somebody's like side thing, or they have two other things they're working on, and I'm the CEO of this company, but I also have that company, I'm thinking you're probably not going to be dedicated and focused on this company. I think a problem a lot of founders have is also lack of connections. That's solvable. If you're a founder that just doesn't come from the background, that it's easy for you to just raise friends and family because your friends and family don't have any money, that is a problem for a founder. But if you're realistic about that, I'm somebody that would try to help there. If another problem for a founder could be not thinking through or having a proper plan on how to grow and scale. That was actually the problem I had as a founder. I just went right into it. I never realized how quickly I would grow and how difficult it would be to actually keep up with growth. Once you get to a point where the work just keeps coming and the clients keep coming, what happens if you run out of inventory, if you're in a business where you're selling product? What happens if you can't retain staff, or you can't find good people, or you don't have proper guidance in how to set up systems and have them in place to help you scale? One of the worst things you can do as a company is to grow too quickly and then do a bad job, because it's a lot harder to get somebody back as a client or as a customer once you've failed them. So I look for a founder that understands that says, here's my plan for growth. This is how we're going to tackle that. Now, there's some problems that nobody can solve, like tariffs, for example, is a big problem right now. if you're a small business and somebody suddenly imposes a tariff on the materials that you need, that's not being a bad founder. That's very unfortunate luck, and it is a real problem. I had a company I invested in that was doing great. They were tracking as they said they would. And then we had a little thing called COVID. And what that company was doing, it was in ticketing. It was in ticketing for live events. And all of the live events shut down for a year. And they didn't have the runway to last that year and wait for things to come back. So they went under. And that was really unfortunate. That was not their fault. Things happen. There's always risks for anybody, and there's always potential. People can steal your IP. Doesn't matter if you have a patent, it doesn't always protect you. That's something I think a lot of founders don't realize. They're thinking, okay, I'm safe. I patented it. I spent all this money and time on the patent, and they should get a patent. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I think a lot of times they don't realize that they're still vulnerable, because even if their patent's been breached, the odds of them having the money to fight it can be a real challenge. Another problem I think for founders is when they're desperate for money, taking money from the wrong place. I think I meet people all the time, and I stop them from taking investment because I look at the terms, and I'm like, you're giving away way too much of your equity. You have a business with purchase orders. You should go the debt route. Why don't you get debt? And it was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Well, yeah, you've got purchase orders. You can get debt. Why are you giving your equity away? So there's always challenges. There's a lot of there's corrupt people that are going to take advantage. I've seen it happen a lot of times. They trust the wrong person. I've trusted the wrong person. It's happened to me. So I think you just have to really think through your plan and have a backup plan for the plan that you had. Learn to pivot.
Okay.
I would say that would be the biggest advice I could ever get to anybody, is figure out how to pivot when things go wrong. Because they will.
That's a very good advice. Now, speaking of your mistakes, have you made any mistakes as an investor? What's the biggest one?
Oh. The biggest one was investing in a private credit fund, which I did as a safe investment. I was counseled. This was right after I sold my company, and I was sitting on cash. And I had a friend say to me, why are you sitting on cash? You're not making any money on the cash. And I said, well, I just really want to make sure I have it available. Life happens. I want the liquidity. I don't want to be tied up with it. And he said, well, why don't you do something like a private credit fund that you won't make that much money, but it's pretty stable. And that way, this particular one has a 60-day redemption. So, keep enough cash available for 60, 90 days. But if you need your money back, just redeem. And I took that advice, and I moved a lot of my money into this private credit fund. And I was making about, 7% return a year. Seemed normal, nothing out of the ordinary. And then COVID hit, and I went to redeem because I did need the money then. And apparently other people did too. And that was when it was exposed. It was basically like a Madoff scheme. They didn't have the money. It's been in receivership since 2020. I have yet to receive 1 penny back. And that was an investment where I didn't know the fund. I didn't know the team. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. I did that strictly to have a safe place for my money. I'd read that private credit was very safe. Funds were safer. If you trust a fund manager, you have diversification, all of those things. All of my biggest losses have been in funds. Because I had I did another one. I went into a blockchain fund, because I didn't know how to pick my own investments. And I thought that was such a up and coming area. I didn't want to miss out. So I did that through a manager. Disaster. So my personal biggest losses have been in funds, but we all make mistakes.
Yep. Any mistakes related to your investments into companies?
Yes. 2 come to mind. Again, one of them came through the recommendation of a friend that I trusted. and I didn't really properly diligence the company. And I invested, and the guy like dropped off the face of the planet. Like, we have no idea what he's doing, didn't stay in touch. And it was in the diversity, equity, inclusion space. So now he would have tanked anyway, just because of the changing of the guard. But when DEI was a super hot space, he wasn't building the company. So that was a mistake, not diligencing him properly, trusting a friend's recommendation rather than my own instincts. And the other one, well, as I said, the one that shut down because of COVID, that wasn't really a mistake. That was just
It
very
wasn't a
unfortunate.
mistake, no.
Yeah. Trying to think of any other oh, yes, there was one other one. And again, I didn't meet the founder. I went through an angel group into a company that was doing very well. And then all of a sudden, one day, her website just is like, we don't have, we're done. We have no more products. She like skipped the country. No, we're all like, it's really a problem. She had a real brand that was selling very well. And she's a dishonest person, I guess. I don't know what happened, because I'm just a passive investor, right? Again, my mistake was not having the direct line to the founder, because I went through a group, a syndicate. I never really got to know her. I just got the sort of the presentation. Now, the good thing for me was it was a small angel chat. It's not going to really change my life, but it was infuriating that this woman basically stole from her investors, because she had a company that was doing very well, and then she just seems to have cut and run. I do know that they're working on, the bigger investors in the company, I think, are working on trying to get the brand and the IP so that they can bring it back, because the customers loved it. So she was doing well. I don't know what happened. I don't know if this woman is mentally ill. I have no idea what happened, but that was a mistake.
Okay. Now, let's switch to philanthropy. What are the most important? Yeah, this is a big part of your life.
It's the biggest part of my life.
The biggest part of your life. So what are the most urgent social issues which you are trying to solve?
Right. So, well, there's a few. My current highest priority, because I'm only $4,000 away from my goal, so I'm really close. I have an animal rescue that I support, and in that animal rescue, when my dog died, my dog was basically my child. I loved my dog more than life itself. And when he died, I created a program at this animal rescue that is specifically to foster temporarily the pets of victims of domestic violence or addiction and mental health. What people don't realize is the tie between those things. A lot of women, when they're ready to leave, or men, I guess, but usually it's women, are ready to leave an abusive partner. Many of the organizations that are there to help those women don't allow pets. They can't take their pets. So they're being asked, if they basically are trying to leave this person, to leave their pet behind. And they can't do that, right? What's the first thing a guy might do to hurt you? Hurt your pet. So many women were staying in abusive situations. And I said, we can solve this. So we created Winston's Room at the Camp Papillon Animal Rescue in Pennsylvania. And what we do is we work with the domestic violence organization, and we can temporarily house the pets until the women are safe, and then reunite them. And then the same thing with addiction. A lot of people have to go to rehab. They need time to recover from addiction or a mental health issue. And they don't go get that help because they don't have anyone to take care of their pets. So it's the same thing. We'll work with the addiction nonprofits, and we will take the pets so that people can go get their help. So that's like probably my most important personal philanthropy, because that is something that it covers almost everything I care about, which is helping people and helping women and helping dogs. So all of those things really matter to me. I also am very, very passionate about education for kids, education in the arts. So I do a lot of nonprofit work in that space, and I'm very passionate about that. And then cancer. Cancer's affected my life. I lost both of my best friends growing up to cancer. It's a terrible disease. There's lots of organizations. They're all doing wonderful work. But I believe that you have to have more creativity when you're fundraising for something like cancer because there are so many organizations. Just like a business, philanthropy, it's competitive. You're competing for donor dollars, and you could have the best mission in the world, but it's really about how do you find new donors? How do you keep the donors you have? How do you get the word out about the problem? And so that's how I really try to utilize my network and utilize my creativity to think, how can we do something differently to get people motivated? Because unless you're a large charity, you don't have the budget to advertise on television. Unless you're a large charity, you can't afford to put on these galas that bring in a lot of money, but they cost a lot of money to mount. You have to find a big speaker to come in for anyone to care most of the time at a gala. Even a golf tournament, you need to have the relationship with the golf course. You need to have the corporations willing to sponsor the hole. It's a lot. And so if you're a scrappy nonprofit, like a small animal rescue, there's no way they can do that type of fundraising. So it really becomes grassroots, and it really becomes, how do you think of an out-of-the-box idea that's going to help make this work? And so, I've done a lot of different things to try to do that. One of the things that I do, so I am not a broker-dealer. I cannot accept success fees to help people with their raise. But what I have been able to successfully do is say, listen, if I help connect you to the capital or the business, what you ordinarily would have paid to a broker or something like that, I would like you to donate to the charity of my choice. And so that's a way that I can use my talent and get something for that person that they want, but still help the charity. Because one thing I've learned in charity and philanthropy is, even though it's really terrible, a lot of people approach philanthropy still with the idea of what's in it for me. A lot of people still want some form of, it's really about them more than the charity. And so rather than try to change that, because I used to find that very discouraging, but now I lean in and I say, okay, if that's how you feel, because the person that's just philanthropic, they're going to give anyway, so you don't have to worry. But the person that's approaching philanthropy from, how do I benefit personally? You have to find something that's going to benefit them personally.
So what's that?
Well, in that example, it's helping them with their business or helping them
I understand,
get to...
but beyond that.
Right. Well, beyond that, I have an idea. It has not happened yet. In fact, I would love opinions on whether I should do it or not do it, because it's a risky idea. But I want to raise money for breast cancer. And I thought to myself, I watch all of these girls on OnlyFans, Instagram, YouTube, making millions of dollars, literally dancing around in a bikini, and they have actually nothing to offer or say. They're basically just using their bodies and being cute and their sexuality, and they're making more money and getting more hits and more attention than, here's some statistics and cancer research and what we can do. So I thought I could combine my theatrical personality, my deep network of experts and celebrities and interesting people, and the fact that I am well endowed, and start a podcast like this, but called Off My Chest, where I interview people and we talk about real things, really in-depth topics, nothing fluff, nothing sexual, nothing silly, but I do it in a bra every time because I think we'll get more traffic. So I want to call it Off My Chest, and I want to get really interesting people to come on, and it would be really fun. I don't know if you saw the movie The Big Short.
Yes.
But if you did, there's a scene where she's like in a bathtub and she explains finance in a second.
Yes.
And that sort of made me think I could do that. It's a short thing, but we're going to talk, we're going to teach, we're going to educate, we're going to help people with financial literacy. We're going to help people with any number of topics they want to learn about. And simply by wearing a bra, which honestly doesn't show any more than a dress, it shows a lot less than a bathing suit. But by doing that, I will be reminding people of breast cancer, and a big percentage of any subscription fees that we get for the show would go to support breast cancer. So I like the idea, but I really would love to know what other people think, because I do not want this to be something that is seen as negative towards women. This is for women. This is about realizing that, let's be realistic, a lot of people want to see cleavage. They just do. So instead of fighting that and being mad about it and getting all angry about it, which doesn't actually achieve much, lean in, give the people what they want. Maybe you'll really find that you really help people far beyond. That's an initial kitschy thing. But what you'll find is that people tune in and really learn. They learn. And why can you use gaming for education and not other assets? That's how I look at it. But I'm open-minded to feedback on that. I think it's something I might do, but it's very, it's personally risky for me, because I'll be putting myself out there, and I need to make sure I can get the guests to come on. I don't want people to be afraid. This is not degrading women. This is not sexualizing anything. This is simply saying, let's talk about something real that you know really well, but let's do it for a great cause. So we'll see. But I hope if I do it, I hope that you will subscribe.
That's an interesting idea. Our listeners are very welcome to leave their comments, of course. And if you can tell people how they can reach you, that may also be very helpful.
Sure. So I have a website, lisamorrissimpact.com, LISAMORRIS impact.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Again, if you type in Lisa Morris Impact, I will come up. Those are the best ways to reach me initially. I'm obviously not going to give out my phone number, my private information on a public forum. But those are the best ways to get in touch. And I would love feedback. I would really love interested guests that are experts in a field that are going to take this very seriously. Again, this idea is not to trivialize or sexualize or anything else. It's to get attention for an important topic and to figure out a way that we can all use what we have to give back. I think when it comes to philanthropy, many people think if they don't have money, they can't be philanthropic, and that's just not true. Giving of your time, your treasure, your talent, you can do a lot without a financial give. And so I just want to encourage people to do something philanthropic in their lives for whatever they care about. And my dog was named Winston, and I named him Winston after Churchill, because Churchill said, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." And that, for me, is how I live my life every day.
That's a very interesting finale. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.